The public memory of these events is uneven. The court named Will only by a first name. The opinion called him Negro Will. The overseer bore a full name. The owner's name is complete. James S. Battle remains easy to trace. The enslaved foreman's name, Allen, survives in the verdict facts. The law wrote down certain details and erased others. Even so, modern historians have worked to recover names and places. A historical marker now stands near Tarboro to explain the case to the public. The marker notes Will and his lawyer, Moore. It cites the ruling that spared Will the gallows. The path to that marker ran through archives and law libraries. The special verdict from the trial fixed the facts. The appellate decision fixed the ruling. Historians then traced the plantation. They connected Walnut Creek to the Battles, a prominent North Carolina family. They placed the episode on the landscape. They aimed to show how power and law met where people worked cotton and lived under control. This is one story, but not the only one. Violence between enslaved people and overseers was common across the South. One Mississippi case in 1857 shows the pattern from another angle. An overseer named Duncan Skinner died near Natchez. White fears spiked. Rumors spread about a plot. Authorities arrested dozens of enslaved people. They held fast trials. They publicly hanged 3 enslaved men. They whipped many more. They banished others. Local whites then lynched more people without trial. The episode is grim. It shows how a single death could trigger collective punishment. It also shows how fragile any legal process was when white panic rose. Set the 2 episodes side by side. In North Carolina, an appellate court placed a small brake on the master's power. In Mississippi, county power and mobs merged. Both reveal the structure. Slavery depended on coercion, punishment, and the constant threat of force. Enslaved people resisted in many ways. They broke tools, they worked slow, they ran, they fought when cornered. Sometimes they killed overseers. The official record often labeled any such act as a plot. Courts rarely weighed a slave's fear, pain, or right to live. State v. Will is rare for that reason. There is no verified record of a man named Joseph Carter, who hung his overseer from an oak tree. The archives do preserve a true case in which an enslaved man killed an overseer. His name in the record is Will. The law recorded him only as Negro Will. His act and trial took place in North Carolina in 1834. What follows is his documented story, told in plain language from surviving sources. It is before dawn, at Walnut Creek, a plantation owned by James S. Battle in Edgecombe County, North Carolina. Winter holds the fields. The soil is cold. Men and women walk to their tasks. Overseer Richard Baxter carries the power of the owner. He holds the right to order, to punish, to force speed. A foreman named Allen, also enslaved, watches the crews. He was placed above other enslaved workers to push the pace. This role often bred tension. He tells Will to let someone else use a hoe. Will has made the handle himself during rare free time. He claims the tool as his own work. He refuses. Angry words pass between the 2 men. Will breaks the handle so no one else can use it. He then heads off, a quarter mile, to the cotton screw where he works. Allen goes to Baxter. He reports what happened. Baxter goes inside his house. His wife tells him not to go. He says he will. He takes his gun. He mounts his horse. He rides the 600 yards toward the cotton screw where Will now stands and throws Cotton into the box. He dismounts. He climbs a fence. He comes close. He orders Will to come down. Will takes off his hat. He comes down. We do not know the exact words spoken next. The witnesses do not record them. Will turns and runs. Baxter fires his gun into Will's back from about 10 to 15 paces. The whole load lodges in Will's back. The pattern covers a span of about 12 inches square. It could have killed him. It does not. Will keeps running. Baxter orders two enslaved men to chase Will. He lays down the gun. He mounts his horse. He rides around to cut Will off. He dismounts again. He jumps the fence and runs on foot. He closes the distance. Will sees him and shifts direction to avoid him. The chase covers hundreds of yards. Will is wounded and in pain. He is running for his life. Baxter reaches him and grabs him by the collar with his right hand. The two men struggle. The men ordered to help Baxter are coming up fast. Will has drawn a knife. He bites Baxter's left thumb. One of the men moves in to seize Will. Will swings the knife and misses the helper. He cuts Baxter in the thigh. In the scramble, Will strikes again. He cuts Baxter's arm above the elbow. Blood pours. The wound is deep, about 2 inches. Baxter lets go. Will breaks free. He runs toward the woods. Baxter tells the others to pursue, then calls them back. He sits on the ground and bleeds. He says, "Will has killed me." He adds that he should have listened to his wife. Baxter dies that evening from loss of blood. The next day, Will surrenders to his owner. He hears that Baxter is dead. He almost collapses. He shows shock. He needs support to stand. The county indicts him for murder. The law, as written and enforced, treats enslaved people as property. Yet the law also names homicide as a crime. The question before the court is narrow. Did Will kill with malice? Or did he kill without malice in the heat of fear and pain? The lower court convicts him of murder. The judge sentences him to death. Will's owner, James S. Battle, pays for an appeal. He does so for his own reasons. He does not wish to keep a man under his control who has killed a white overseer. He also prefers that the law set rules that reduce violent chaos on plantations. The case goes to the North Carolina Supreme Court. Bartholomew F. Moore argues for Will. He is a skilled lawyer. He stands before the state's highest judges. He says the issue is malice. He says Baxter shot an unarmed man who was not in open rebellion. He says a person has the right to defend his life against an unlawful killing, even under slavery. The court must decide if Will had malice when he stabbed Baxter, or if pain, terror, and sudden passion reduced the act to manslaughter. Justice William Gaston writes the opinion. He does not strike down slavery. He does not grant freedom. He does not place enslaved people on equal ground in law. He does, however, draw a line. He states that masters and those acting with a master's authority do not have an unlimited right to kill. The life of an enslaved person is still the life of a person. If an overseer shoots a slave who is not in open revolt, that act can be an unlawful attempt on life. If the enslaved person then kills during the struggle, the law may treat it as manslaughter, not murder. Gaston writes that the prisoner is a human being, degraded by slavery, yet with organs, senses, and passions like others. He rules that the facts show no malice. The court overturns the murder conviction. It replaces the verdict with manslaughter. This is the case of State v. Will, decided in 1834. The decision is narrow but important. 5 years earlier, in State v. Mon, another judge had spoken of the near absolute power of the master. That opinion told society that only moral outrage restrained cruelty short of homicide. Gaston confirms that Mon still stands for most day-to-day discipline, but he carves out a crucial point. A master or overseer may not kill with impunity when the enslaved person is not rebelling. An enslaved person may defend his life against unlawful killing. On these facts, Will's act is manslaughter. It is not murder. What happened next is less clear in every source. Some accounts state that Will was released after the manslaughter ruling, then sent by battle to a Mississippi plantation. That aligns with the custom of removing a problem from a local labor force by sale or transfer. One modern news summary goes further. It says Will later killed a fellow slave in Mississippi and was executed. Not all historical write-ups repeat that claim. The core record of the 1834 case does not resolve his final fate. What is solid is the North Carolina ruling and the facts that produced it. Set the legal text aside for a moment. Focus on the human sequence. A dispute over a hoe handle, a refusal, a shot to the back, a desperate run, a struggle, a death. That is the chain of events. The scale of violence on plantations was constant. Many episodes never reached a courtroom. This one did, because a white overseer died and because an owner wanted legal clarity. The case shows the daily pressure cooker of plantation work. Enslaved people created small pockets of control, a tool handle made in stolen time, a hope that one's own labor could make one small thing better to use. An enslaved foreman stood between owner and field hands. The role kept the system moving. It often fractured the enslaved community. It made resentments flare. Oversight came with a whip, a cowhide, a gun. The incident moves from a tool dispute to gunfire in minutes. That is how fragile life was. It also shows how even a limited legal right could form. The court did not craft a doctrine of equal self-defense. It did not erase the daily violence. Yet it did say that a slave's life had legal value. That line mattered to defense lawyers in later cases. It gave a foothold for arguments in a rigid system. It also exposed contradictions. If a slave could defend his life against unlawful deadly force, what counted as unlawful under slave codes? The opinion tries to define that boundary. It rests on whether the slave was in open rebellion or not. Return to the morning of January 22, 1834. Will is at the cotton screw. He hears Baxter's order. He complies at first. He takes off his hat. He steps down. He then flees. Some ask, why run? The answer is direct. Baxter came with a loaded gun. He shot Will in the back while Will was running away. The wound was severe. Any person would fear death in that situation. That fear explains the later knife blows. The law in 1834 did not often speak to the humanity of enslaved people. Gaston's opinion did so in limited terms. It recognized that terror and pain can cloud judgment fast. It recognized that a shot in the back is an unlawful act when the target is not rebelling. The lower court judge had sentenced Will to death. The higher court spared him. Yet think about what spared meant. Will was not free. He returned to slavery. Most accounts say he was sent away from North Carolina. Sale or transfer after a high-profile case was common. This protected the owner's local order. It removed a man whom other enslaved people might see as a symbol of resistance. In the record, Will does not get a last name. He does not get a full biography. He exists in the law for a moment because a white man died. That is how archives work in slave societies. Names surface when power takes interest. What of Baxter's widow? She told him not to go. He ignored her. He chose to arm himself and pursue. He chose to fire. He bled to death from the arm wound. He spoke a plain regret before he died. That line humanizes him and incriminates his judgment at once. He lived in a system that gave him authority. He pushed that authority to the edge of killing. The law decided that he crossed it. The price was his life. What of Allen, the foreman? He sat between worlds. He had to report disobedience to keep his role. He had to drive people he knew. He was also enslaved. His small power depended on the owner's trust. The episode began with his report. It ended with a white man dead and Allen still in bondage. His position remained dangerous. The incident shows how slavery forced people into conflict with each other in order to sustain the owner's power. What of James S. Battle? He acted as a pragmatic owner. He funded the appeal. He removed Will from his North Carolina operations afterward. He also moved on with his business interests. Owners often treated people as assets to be moved to reduce risk. A man who had stabbed an overseer could not remain among others without sending a message. In Mississippi, he would be unknown to his new overseers. He would carry the scar from the gunshot. He would carry the memory of a chase through a field, a bite to a thumb, and a knife swing that hit an arm. The legal system treated this as a technical question. Was there malice? The facts in the special verdict matter because they show sequence and motive. Baxter left his house with time to think. He took a gun. He laid out a plan. He told the foreman to follow at a distance with a cowhide. He snuck up to the cotton screw. He ordered Will to come down. He fired when Will ran. The will to punish was clear. The law called it an attempt that could have been murder had the shot killed Will. That framing sets the boundary. It anchors the manslaughter ruling. It gives later generations a window into how judges tried to rationalize a violent system. The decision did not end cruelty. Whipping and beating continued. Patrols hunted runaways. Courts still favored owners. Enslaved people still lacked rights in almost every sphere. But defense lawyers now had a citation to use when a master or overseer killed, or when a slave killed in the struggle to live. Legal history is often a story of small footholds. This case is one. Public memory can distort. Stories spread that sound true. Legends attach to big symbols like oaks and crossroads. We like images of rough justice, of ropes and branches, of sudden turns of fate. The record in Will's case is different. There is no tree in the facts. There is a cotton screw. There is a field. There is a fence. There is distance measured in yards. There is a shot in the back. There is a brief fight. There is blood and a sentence spoken by a dying man. There is a legal argument and an opinion. That is what we have. The urge to name a hero is strong. The archive often denies us names. It gives us a single first name and then falls silent. Even so, the story is powerful. It shows an enslaved man acting to survive. It shows a court making a small space for that human response. It shows the limits of that space under a slave regime. It confirms that law can both restrain and enforce violence at the same time. The decision has been taught in law schools and in state history courses. It appears on heritage websites and in public history essays. A roadside marker now fixes the case in place. Visitors can stop near. They can read that an enslaved man killed an overseer. They can read that a lawyer argued self-defense. They can read that a judge wrote words about shared human faculties. The marker sits on a modern road. Cars pass. Cotton fields still exist in the region. The land still holds the memory of forced labor. If you want to place this case in the wider tide of resistance, study the record of revolts and everyday acts. Nat Turner's revolt spread fear in 1831. It produced harsh new laws. Denmark Vesey's alleged plot in 1822 did the same. Most resistance was smaller. A tool broken. A delay. A quiet meeting. A theft of time. A step off the road to rest. A run to the woods. A short flight to family on another plantation. A longer flight north. A fight at the moment when one more blow would kill you. Will's case belongs to this last category. It is not a revolt. It is not a plan to overthrow a county. It is a fight to live, a fight at the moment when one more blow would kill you. Will's case belongs to this last category. It is not a revolt. It is not a plan to overthrow a county. It is a fight to live. The case also tells us how the law creates categories to manage violence. The words are clean: murder, manslaughter, self-defense, rebellion, submission. The facts under those words are messy. They are pain and fear. They are habit and rage. They are how people acted in seconds. The law tries to fit those seconds into boxes, and those boxes into a social order that enforces bondage. Gaston tried to draw a fair line within an unfair system. He did not step outside the system. He worked within it to prevent one kind of killing. Today, readers may look for a name like Joseph Carter in old newspapers or court dockets. They will not find a documented case that matches the dramatic tale of a slave who hung his overseer from an oak tree on Independence Day. They will find the legal and factual record of Will, who killed an overseer after being shot in the back. They will find that a court called it manslaughter. They will see how that ruling fits a grim landscape. They will also find other records of overseer killings, like the Natchez episode, which ended in mass punishment without mercy. These sources are hard. They require patience and care. They reward that care by giving us real people and real choices, not myths. Will's story is a true one. It is also incomplete. We do not know his thoughts before dawn. We do not know if the hoe handle had a smooth grip or a rough one. We do not know if he slept well the night before. We do know he made that handle in rare free time. He valued it as a small claim to dignity. We know a foreman overruled him. We know an overseer chose to escalate. We know a white woman told her husband to stop, and he ignored her. We know the shot hit Will's back. We know he ran. We know he fought. We know a judge wrote that even an enslaved man has a life the law must weigh. That is enough to learn from. If you tell this story to others, keep the core facts. Name the place, name the people, name the date, January 22nd, 1834. Say that a dispute over a hoe led to a shooting, a chase, and a death. Say that the state Supreme Court decided the killing was manslaughter, not murder, because the overseer had fired first when there was no rebellion. Say that the owner likely sent Will away to Mississippi after the ruling. Say that the law did not free him. Say that the decision set a narrow right to defend one's life. Keep those points clear. They are all in the record. You can also place the marker on a map, drive near Tarboro, and look for the sign, read the summary. Picture the field, the fence, and the cotton screw, instead of an oak limb. Picture the wound and the run. Picture the hot arm wound that would not stop bleeding. Picture a court trying to draw a line that cruelty should not cross. Then picture an owner who moves a man like a ledger entry after the case is done. That is what slavery did. It made people movable and disposable. The law sometimes stepped in to limit the bloodshed, then stepped back to let the system run. Will's case stands as one of the clearest windows into the daily force that sustained slavery. It shows us a single morning and a single decision by a judge. It shows us that the truth is often simpler and harder than legend. It is not a tale of hanging from a tree. It is a record of a man who chose to live after being shot in the back, and a court that recognized his fear as real. That is the true history available to us. Sources for this true account include the North Carolina Supreme Court opinion and its special verdict, public history summaries, and a state historical marker. They document the people, the acts, and the ruling in State v. Will 1834. They also frame the wider context of overseer killings in the antebellum South,